clearly. The chair of the meeting has the discretion to terminate or suspend recording and live streaming if, in their opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceeding of the meeting. Recording and live streaming of confidential items will also not take place. To alert the chair of the meeting that you would like to speak, please raise your hand and wait for them to call upon you before speaking. Please remember, if you leave the meeting for any reason, you will not be able to take part in the vote on the item that is being discussed at the time. Members of the public will be able to view the live stream of the meeting via YouTube. When speaking, please make your points as succinct as possible to allow for the smooth running of the meeting. Can I also take this opportunity to remind you to be polite and treat each other with respect at all times? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming along to this evening's meeting of the Personnel Committee. We have no members of the public with us this evening, so no public questions. So we'll move straight into the agenda. First up, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Tom Deacon and also from Councillor Smith-Roberts, who has asked Councillor Fernandez to step in and substitute for her. And also Councillor Pollard is unable to be with us this evening. I haven't heard from Councillor Tully.
Here he is. I
think he is here. Good evening, Councillor Tully. Perfect timing. Thank you very much. So we are core this evening. Thank you all very much for being here. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does anyone here have any interests they need to bear out? No. Thank you very much. So no declarations of interest to note on that point. We move on to item 3, which are the minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, and does anyone have any questions, comments or corrections to make to them? No, that's great. Thank you very much. Do I have someone to propose that we accept those as a record of the meeting? Councillor Furman. Do I have a seconder? In that case, I will second them as I was there. So all those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, that is any other abstentions, Councillor Fernandez?
I abstained, so I wasn't here.
Okay, otherwise that has passed. I will sign those as a record of the meeting. Thank you very much. And we move on to the next item, which is the forward plan. Nikki, would you like to run through that?
Yep, thank you, please. Good evening. So for the next committee meeting on 4th of February, we're looking to bring to the committee a neurodiversity policy, a new job evaluation process, and we've got some lone working / out of hours policy, which was rolled over from this committee, our regular starters, leavers and recruitment update, and we've got a handbook for new employees with sort of need to know information in it.
I don't have any questions on that forward plan. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? In that case, can I have someone to propose that we note that forward plan? Councillor Fernandez, someone to second that. Councillor Tully, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That is noted. And the next item on the agenda, which I'm not missing anything else, is the budget for 26-27. I hand over to Gail to present this.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Member will see the attached report and Appendix 1, which is an outline of the proposed staff budget. The full draft budget, which has been prepared, shows a preset requirement of 6,815,406, which is currently a 3.7% increase on 25-26. That's the total amount. based on the fact if we were using last year's tax base, because we haven't had this year's figures yet, that would incur a £12.06 per annum increase in the band D. Staff budget itself has risen to 50% of the preset from 25-26, but in 25-26 there were 60.2 staff. Or is it not switched on? Sorry. Oh, no. Yeah. Which has increased to 80.2. So the 10% increase actually takes account of the additional 20 staff. The budget's been prepared, including incremental increases which take place in April and a 3.8% annual pay increase based on the national award. So that brings the total staff budget up to 3.4 million. Other items are mentioned in the report, specifically relate to staff costs such as training, recruitment, occupational health, employee benefits and the cycle to work scheme, which has already been agreed by this committee.
Very much. Do we have any questions from the committee on the budget proposal? Give you a couple of minutes to mull over the figures in front of you. While we're waiting for the committee to consider other questions, I just wanted to check obviously this is it's a significant increase, being 50% off next year's preset. Just wanted to confirm that that is not all coming from council tax increase. Is that being sourced from elsewhere within the existing budget?
Yes, we've gone back to zero-based budgeting, so some of those areas have been cut right back to look at how we spent this year, and now we're beginning to get a history. But we've also cut back on issues such as the toilet refurbishment, and based on the fact that we think that we have sufficient in the budget now to do an additional toilet refurbishment next year. Devolved services equipment has also gone down by 150,000 because that was the equipment we had to buy when we took on the open spaces. So there are a number of items where budgets have been cut.
So that's spends on capital costs, material costs,
Yeah.
and projects that is now going to the additional staff costs. So it's a significant portion that is a transfer within.
Yeah, and then
Within the budget.
and the increase is in line with inflation, 3.7 on the overall.
Very much. I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Furman.
Yes, with the pension budget, and that's obviously coming out at about £500,000. Have we got the right reserves for that going into the future?
That's the Somerset Council pension scheme. We don't specifically get actuarial review of that, so I assume Somerset Council have enough going forward in future because we don't get involved in that.
Okay, and that's information that isn't currently or isn't available to us.
No, if we had to go when the accounting was going to have to change, we were going to have to go to full sort accounting. We would have then had to have a separate actuarial valuation of the pension scheme that related to our staff. But because we don't do full sort accounting, then we don't have to have.
Councillor Furman.
Obviously, with that, Somerset Council aren't. They're having some difficulties. If in the worst case scenario they couldn't fulfill the pension, is that something we would have to do, or is it just sort of lose out?
The money's administered separately by Peninsula, so under the statutory legislation for pensions, the money has to be paid over to them.
Okay, so that's a protected fund. Okay, answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any questions from any of the other councillors on the budget? I was going to ask, what would the impact be? Because obviously this is making some assumptions on a union agreed pay rises. Have we got tolerance within that should the unions agree an amount above what you forecast?
We have an earmark reserve with £200,000 in for staffing, which we could draw on should the rise be more than 3.8% inflation when we budget again.
And just to refresh our memory, what was the union agreed rise last year?
3.6%.
3.6%. So 3.8% is within the realm of what happened in the previous year.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Do I have any more questions? Just me. It's me asking lots of questions. So can you remind me, what is the current staffing level at the moment? Just to put you on the spot, what is our full-time equivalent current staffing level? And apologies, because this isn't part of this report. This
No, does it say it in the report?
I feel like this is a figure I should know, but I'm not sure.
It was 50, I think it was like 59 point something, and the head count was 60 when I was doing sickness reporting earlier.
So circa 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at 20 additional full-time equivalents. And which teams are they going to be predominantly found in?
Predominantly in operations, assets and community in place, so the frontline services.
Okay, so these are people delivering green space maintenance, toilet maintenance, other frontline services of that nature.
Predominantly.
And I'm assuming that is because we have obviously taken back the contract from Somerset Council for the parks management and also stopped going through a contractor for the toilet maintenance completely.
All of that is carried out in-house now.
Yeah. No, that's fine, just to clarify that point. And how many, obviously there's a full-time equivalent number of 79,
79.6.
yes, it was the point I can remember, 79.6. What's the head count? Do you know what the head count actually is? Including all of the part-time people, roughly speaking, what are we looking at? Is it closer to 100?
No, it's about 80. About 80 something. Yeah, I've only got
Okay.
equivalent.
Yeah, we've not got many part.
Okay.
No,
No, that's not so. Only slightly more
Yes.
if you take out the full-time equivalent.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not massively dissimilar.
Mhm.
I know we have quite a few apprentices. What proportion of those are apprentices? What's our current?
so within this structure, I think is it 30,
13.
13 apprentices.
13 apprentices, and they're across all the teams.
All the teams, yes.
Okay. No, that's really good. It's definitely a scheme we need to get behind and give lots of opportunities to the young people in town. So it's really good that we're doing that. And we have T-level students who come on Monday a week. They're not included in these figures.
No.
They're not. Okay. So they are an additional resource with no cost,
Yes.
no direct cost to the council.
Yeah, that's correct.
No, that's really good. I think that's the end of my questions. Do I have anything else from the committee? So we're looking at an overall budget increase of 3.7% for the council as a whole.
Yep.
And just remind me again what the percentage increase for this particular budget, right? This committee.
Committee is, sorry, the budget has gone up to 50% of the preset from 40% of the preset last year.
Thank you very much. Bear with a second, I'm just going to get to the resolution to make sure I ask the council to vote on the correct wording. So members are asked to consider the draft budget and make a recommendation to the Finance and Governance Committee on the proposed budget requirement for personnel for 2026 to 2027. So if there are no further questions or comments on the budget that's been put forward, does anyone want to propose that we put this forward to Finance and Governance Committee? Councillor Firmin. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fernandez. All those in favour of putting this budget forward? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you very much for my agenda. Appreciate it. In that case, we will move on to item 6, which is amendments to the remote working policy. Members are asked to approve the amended wording to the remote working policy. Do you want to give us a quick statement of report? Thank you.
Yeah, so the remote working policy currently has a general paragraph about working abroad. And there's numerous factors that we need to consider when employees wish to work abroad temporarily. The introduction of assertion 10 in the next financial year, which that focuses on digital and data compliance for parish and town councils, and having received requests for temporary working abroad, has resulted in the council amending this policy slightly to provide some more robust guidance for managers as how to deal with these requests. So the key sort of changes, we've added in temporary, which is defined in the policy as a maximum, up to a maximum of 4 weeks. My sincere apologies, I didn't actually write in the policy that in brackets, so I do need to make that amendment. I noticed it earlier on when I was reading through the policy, but that's the maximum of 4 weeks working abroad. It would only be in very exceptional circumstances and certainly not instead of annual leave for employees. We've introduced any approvals to be made by a panel of interested parties, and they would only approve again in exceptional circumstances and where it's deemed to be safe to do so. We've created a form which can be used to request and evidence all the considerations made by the panel, and that might include things like health and safety, the time difference, service cover, the type of role, etc. There's no right of appeal, so the panel's decision is final. I invite any questions.
Do I have any questions from the committee? I have more of a comment than a question, because my main concern was that staff may feel obliged or feel the need to work if they go on holiday, if they feel there's something they can't leave behind. I think it is really important that staff are able to switch off, that things don't all fall apart if one person is missing. It's really important that we have a really resilient organisation that can cope with someone having 2 weeks leave, which they're fully entitled to without needing to check in. So that was my main concern, that the policy does cover this, that the expectation is that they don't work remotely, even if they're away, for a few days, they actually can switch off. That's really good, thank you. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. Is this something that would be given under exceptional circumstances? I'm just thinking, in what circumstances would somebody, want to be abroad for 4 weeks? I mean, I can understand it maybe if, close relation or a relative doesn't live in this country and they have to be there for, for caring purposes and so on. So I'm guessing it would be an exceptional circumstance. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly what described.
Yeah, no, that seems like a really reasonable kind of exception to the rule. I'm absolutely fine with that. Do we have any other comments on that policy? In that case, we are asked to approve the amended wording to the remote working policy. Do I have someone to propose that we do so? Councillor Firmin, seconded by Councillor Tully. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's carried. And then we move on to item 7, which is an amendment to the leave policy. Nikki leading on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that Councillor Fernandez is here, actually, because she knows a lot about this policy. So the council has an appetite to increase its defence employer recognition scheme from bronze award to silver and then potentially to gold level. So there are 3 tiers of award: bronze, silver and gold, for employers who firstly pledge and then will demonstrate and then advocate support to the armed forces community in alignment with our Armed Forces Covenant. So in order to meet the criteria for these levels, we will need to demonstrate our support and commitment to the armed forces by creating some policies that create and encourage positive environments for both reservists and cadet forces volunteers in particular. So to do this, we looked at our leave policy, which is part of the criteria that we needed to meet. So currently our town council's leave policy does contain time off for public duties, which is up to 5 days, and we have a volunteering policy, which is 3 days. So we're proposing that both of these sections be expanded to include up to 5 days paid time off for reservist training, and then cadet volunteers to have 3 paid days leave in order for the council to meet this criteria required to get us to silver level. We wouldn't be able to move immediately to gold level, but in advance of a potential application to that level, the committee might like to consider that the leave policy be expanded for reservists to maybe have their own section, allowing at least 10 days paid leave per annum, which is what that gold criteria requires. It doesn't require anything extra for the cadet force volunteers. I invite any questions.
Very much. Can I just double check, just to clarify, the proposal for the 5 days and for the 5 days and 3 days is essentially expanding the wording of the existing policy they would have to cover those scenarios that they, so you could take your 5 public service days as a reservist,
Yes.
and you could take your cadet 3 days. Under the existing policy, it's just amending as well. Councillor Fernandez, I know you were, this is something close to your heart. Did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chair. That's one of the reasons I want to come in to this committee meeting this evening, to fully support this agenda item, because we do have, we are a military town. We have a lot of serving personnel here, and obviously we probably, although I don't know, I suspect we have a lot of reservists here as well, and have that support for those reserves to do the reserve training. It's usually about 2 weeks per year, if it's Territorial Army or the Naval Reserves, for sure. And I just think it demonstrates that we as a town council are listening and understanding in support of our service personnel. So I absolutely welcome this. Thank you. Oh, and not forgetting the cadet forces as well, because obviously our Sea Cadets, Army Cadets and RAF Cadets, the instructors, they usually have a couple of weeks a year for camps and also for their training as well. So that's really important. Thank you.
I had a thought, bear with me a second. It's been a very, very long day. I think we discussed previously the idea that the reserve forces might have capacity to pay reservists. What have you found out about that? What was the response?
So we did, yeah, we asked the question. So we've got a relationship and contacts at the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, who confirmed that yes, reservists would get paid a small amount, but actually, because it's not, it's not a particularly large amount, and it probably wouldn't equate to anywhere near as much as a salary. Really, it would be seen as a positive contribution if we gave them paid leave and then they had their reservists on top. It's encouraging people to go and be a reservist. So in effect, yes, they are double paid, but it wasn't deemed to be a significant amount, and it was seen to be encouraging people to take part.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Nikki, because I think that although you as a reservist you do get paid for the time, it wouldn't cover the gap between if you're having to take unpaid leave from your day-to-day job. It wouldn't cover, there would be a loss for some, certainly.
I'm assuming the admin working out, sort of lowering someone's pay for that amount of time is assumed as probably more of a headache for the team than it might be worth to attempt to kind of compensate for any additional remuneration they get from the reserves. I'm just throwing that. So would there be any appetite for doing that, or would you prefer that they just get the full paid leave?
Yeah, I think most reservists in full-time employment would get paid by their employers as well as getting the reserve pay as well. I mean, many moons ago, I was in the Royal Naval Reserve and I had 2 weeks, but I was in the civil service, so I got that similar sort of thing. You get 2 weeks leave as a reservist, and you would just get your normal pay plus the reserves pay as well.
Thanks for your service. Do we have any reservists currently on the staff at the moment?
Not currently that we're aware of, no, but you know, as with all of the criteria, it's about encouraging and actually, you know, potentially it might be appealing to someone that is a reservist to come and, you know, apply to work with us if they knew that we provided this kind of support. So
Yeah. Or I assume encourage people who are already on the staff body to actually take it up if they know they've got the support to be able to do that. Don't have any further questions. Anyone else? In that case, we are asked to approve the amended wording to the leave policy. Do I have someone to propose that? Councillor Tully, someone to second it? Thank you very much, Councillor Fernandez. All those in favour? That's unanimous, so that has been approved. Thank you very much. We move on to item 8, which is the employee recognition policy review. Members are asked to consider the employee recognition policy review and agree a reduction in the frequency of the staff awards in a 12-month period.
sorry, me.
That's not an it's not a problem.
So I'm asking for a reduction instead of an increase this time. So our employee recognition scheme was developed as a new scheme in December 2024. And it was due a review after 12 months anyway. We have had 3 rounds of awards in 2025 with one due in December as well. And overall, we can see that the awards have been well received by employees. But as per my report, there is a very close turnaround of promotion of the awards, the time for nominations, the scoring, and then the presentation, with little time before the process starts again. There is also a concern that the frequency of awards, with 3 being given per quarter, may result in their impact and their meaning to employees diminishing. As part of this review, we would like to recommend that the award frequency is reduced to take place twice a year, and we would align that with our employee survey, which takes place in the summer and the winter.
Do I have any questions from the committee? I'll dive in. Thank you very much. I think those were some of my reservations when we first brought the policy in. I wondered if that was too frequent. So it's really good that we've had that chance to have a review. I'm really glad it's going down well with the staff, but I think this is probably a very sensible step to take. I think tying it in with the staff surveys is really sensible. I think it's very sound. It's a relatively low cost initiative anyway, so there's no major cost one way or the other to the public, but I think making it more meaningful is really sensible. So I really welcome this as a change. Do I have any more comments from the committee? Councillor Furman?
Was the reduction sort of like a suggestion from the staff, or was it just an idea that was floated around at the top level and then proceeded through with it?
It wasn't something that was suggested by the employees, but we've had an increase in headcount and our nominations have stayed pretty much the same. If anything, they're dropping off slightly. So despite the fact that we are really promoting the awards now, we've really pushed hard the last few times that we've had, the last couple of times we've had the nominations. We have seen a drop off in those nominations. So I think people are getting a bit tired of them perhaps. So it's not something that the employees have requested, it's just an observation that we've made really this review.
Just anecdotally, are you finding that it's frequently the same people that are nominated if it's quarterly? And then so this isn't part of the report, but I'm intrigued to know, is it likely, is it a similar group of people getting nominated for each quarterly award?
There is a spread, and I think it's been somebody different on each category each time that's won. So some people might get from nominations.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mixed across the organisation.
I did wonder if it was very frequent that people would focus on the same bright shiny stars every time. But that's really good to know that even with that frequency, lots of people are being celebrated. So that's a good positive. Thank you. Otherwise, I have no other questions on this. I think it's a very sensible suggestion. So just to say, members are asked to consider the employee recognition policy review and agree a reduction in the frequency of staff awards in a 12-month period. Do I have someone to propose that we adopt this change? That's affirming. Someone to second it? I will second it. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. On to item 9, the White Ribbon Accreditation Update. Members are asked to note the update on the White Ribbon Initiative and consider making application for White Ribbon Accreditation. This is Bryony. Thank you.
It's me this time. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chair. This report provides an update on our previous involvement with the White Ribbon Initiative. So members might remember earlier this year, the committee agreed to join the programme and paid a one-off supporter fee. Since then, White Ribbon has revised its criteria, meaning that we're no longer eligible for that supporter status due to our revenue turnover. So they have instead now recommended a full accreditation, which does involve a greater financial and resource commitment. Specifically, there is an annual fee of £345 for 3 years, and also the establishment of a steering group. I've put full details in the report of what is required, and I've also attached some appendixes which give a bit more information about what might make up the steering group and how involved it is. We have reached out to local partners, including Taunton's Women Aids, in order to explore some collaboration opportunities, but we've not yet had any response from them. Just a very recent update, so just this week, White Ribbon have got back in touch to check on where we are. With this, I did make them aware that it might be the resource element that is going to prove tricky for us. And they have hinted that if that was going to be a blocker for us going for the accreditation level, that they may be able to work with us to come up with an alternative solution. But I think previously they thought that it was going to be the financial impact which was going to prohibit us. But now that they're a bit clearer that I think it might be the resources, they potentially have said that there could be another solution. So tonight the committee is asked to note the update and to decide whether to proceed with an application for accreditation or alternatively to decline based on the additional resource commitment, and instead to request White Ribbon's support in identifying a different way to remain involved. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks, Bryony. It's interesting that they've changed our status because of their perception of revenue, of annual revenue exceeding 1 million. It almost makes us sound quite corporate, but when actually we're a town council and that revenue isn't a profit. It's not. All of that money is ring fenced to provide services for our communities. And I just find it interesting that they say we've got revenue, on paper, yes, but actually it's not revenue at all. And I think the White Ribbon Initiative is a fantastic initiative. I first heard about it a while, it must be about a year or so ago, when we were sort of thinking about it. I think it's a really good initiative, and if they can work with us to sort of negotiate that annual fee, that would be fabulous. And I completely understand the resource of within the team, because you have chairperson, programme manager, subject matter expert, stakeholder. Is quite a lot, isn't it, for us as town council to take on, bearing in mind that we've already got constraints on our existing our existing officer team. So I think it's something that I think it'd be fabulous to have, but I think it comes with caution of the impact on us as a town council. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Any other thoughts on this? Because I'm quite happy to chip in as well. I'm really disappointed. I think it's a great thing to support. I'm really disappointed that there are now 2 categories and you've been pushed into one that's going to have an extra financial burden and a significant burden on resources. I was really supportive initially, especially because it was such a low cost thing to do. And it makes me slightly more reserved. Knowing that I mean, it's not a huge sum, I will say it's not a huge sum of money. But it's just disappointing that we would be asked to contribute that much extra for essentially something that we want to do, that if we have a smaller precept would cost us a fraction of the amount. And to have a whole extra steering group for this one initiative is, again, it's quite a burden to be able to get people to give up time to do this. So I know that Councillor Smith-Roberts is really keen to do this, and she can't be here this evening. And there may be ways to be able to tie this into other things that we do. But I do have reservations about signing up to full accreditation, and would personally prefer to see if there's another route that we can achieve the same aims and have the same support and raise the same awareness, but without those formal restrictions. Councillor Furman.
Yeah, I was going to think, we can do this sort of steering group, but I'm not sure what exactly it would achieve, from our council, because I feel like we meet all the, we can, we kind of do all the missions and names anyway, really. So it's just like, but yeah.
I was just going to bring up just one point. It is in the report, but just to highlight, obviously there are financial and resource implications. On the financial side, we were in receipt of a grant from Avon and Somerset Police, which I've checked with the organisation that gave us that grant, whether or not we could use that fund to pay for the 3 years in one go, because it would cover it, and they're satisfied that it would, and we could use it for that purpose, which minimises some of that financial impact surrounding it. But yes, it doesn't take away from the resource implications, and I have taken some liberties to assume that we would probably need member involvement if we were going to adopt the steering group. And realistically, I've tried to be realistic in how much time that's likely to look at. But yeah, similar, wanted to do something meaningful at the right level.
I can just, obviously you said that we've been given permission to use that grant. Is there something else that we could potentially use that grant for if it wasn't used for this?
I'll be really honest and say that we have struggled to spend it, which is good, because originally we had lots of ideas about providing training to do with violence against women and girls, reaching out to sports centres. We had an evening in Bridgewater. We've been around the houses trying to spend money, and actually what we're finding is that everywhere is saturated, which is brilliant, but it does mean that we're wanting to spend this funding and not wanting to give it back to the police who don't want to have it back from us. So we could certainly try some other things, but we have struggled to spend it.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. What sort of you say you've got funding from Somerset Police? What can it be spent on?
They've been quite relaxed actually, haven't they, around stipulations. So it's under the general umbrella of violence against women and girls, and anything that can be done to support that. It isn't a huge amount of funds, but we do also have in community in place, I've made aware of some funds that are available that could bolster anything that we want to do. But yeah, they've sort of been quite broad and said violence against women and girls generally.
Yeah, because I was just thinking with my community in place hat on, that's where I was sort of thinking about that. And also community in place, we've got the youth engagement officer that we're coming in, and it may be they might have a piece of work. If it's for women and girls, there might be a piece of work around that within that. So it's just sort of worth having a conversation with perhaps Craig Stone at some point to say that there is funding available, or Tilly about that. Thank you.
Okay, what's the time limit on that?
We have to spend it within this financial year. So we've got.
So you have until.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the timing would work, but I'll have a conversation with Craig.
Again, with my grants hat on, is it something that if there was an organisation out there that we've already worked with, that would have a suitable project that this could expand, would it be appropriate to approach them? Because it wouldn't be run through the grants project, but if it was a commissioned piece of work with that particular funding. Would that be possible?
We have tried reaching out to some key contacts, so we've been in contact with SASP. We also spoke to some trainers who provided training locally, and a national provider of training and sports facilities. Absolutely, I do wonder if we could draw attention to the fact that we have this money and see if anyone in the public wants to approach us for it. Yeah.
It's just a very unusual position to be in, but absolutely, if there's, with albeit a relatively small pot of money, we're struggling to spend. It's quite unusual. Okay. Actually, I don't want that to force us into the corner of spending on something that we're not 100% committed to.
Yep.
If we think there might be something else between now and March, which is 4 months. Okay. Do we have any more questions or comments on this, or would someone like to make a proposal at this stage? In that the proposal on the agenda is a little shorter than Bryony's slightly longer suggestion. So what we're being asked to note is the update on the White Ribbon Initiative and to consider making an application for White Ribbon accreditation. So Fernandez.
I wonder whether it's possible to amend it to actually say that we've considered the application and we could reconsider it in 12 months. So it's not completely saying no, but it's actually revisiting it within 12 months time, as and when, you know, we've got a different staffing structure, maybe we've got a different picture of things going forward.
When is the next personnel committee? Is it before the end of March? It's in February. I'm just thinking that if we had a little time to work possibly with Will, again, reach out to some additional contacts or do a little bit of promotion to see if there are any organisations who would have a project that money could really support between now and when we have to put the agenda together for February. Really make a good push to see if actually we can find someone who could really make some really good use of that in the community. And if not, then we could put this back on the agenda for February and reconsider it then to see if we do want to go for the accreditation. And again, we still don't have to do it then. We still could look at just having the lower level. Anders.
Sorry. I think I'm right. I might be. I think the cost side of things is an issue. It is an issue, but it's maybe not, for me, it's not the most important thing. I think for me, it's probably the staffing side of things, and it's whether in the current climate and the fact that, you know, resources are tight, whether I think I've lost it now. I think in Bryony's report, the resource would be 2 to 3 employees attendance and prep for quarterly meetings, along with approximately 1 day per month officer time spent on the actions resulting from that working group, and obviously at least 2 members attendance, so that's 2 councillors as well. And wondering whether that, from an employee's side of things, if that's achievable, you know, currently with what we've got on with it, or whether it's, you know, it's overstretching those officer resources that we've got already. That's just my main concern.
No, that's fine. Yeah, there's two levels of it. I just didn't want to waste the money that obviously then will have to be given back and won't be able to be spent in Taunton. But I absolutely take the point that it's actually quite a time commitment to sign up to this. So I would be very happy to propose that we don't consider applying at this stage, and that we revisit it potentially for the February agenda if we haven't found a use for that fund. Does that make sense as a proposal? Do you need me to reword that in a slightly more concise way, Julia?
You can, yes, but it's okay.
Okay, that's my proposal, that we don't consider applying at this stage, with no prejudice for applying in the future, and that we revisit the scheme possibly at the next committee meeting after having found a source for the funds.
Would it make sense just to defer the decision? So you can defer the decision to the February.
If we're that is an option open rather than voting to not consider it.
Well, you can vote to defer this agenda item so you can go and consider other options. So you're just deferring it rather, because if you've made a decision that you're not going to do it and then you're making another decision in February that you could be, you've got your 6 months.
Okay, no, that makes much more sense, and I think will be easier to note for the minutes.
Item defer.
In that case, I will withdraw that rather wordy proposal and propose that we defer the decision on this. Are you seconding that, Councillor Burnley? Thank you very much. You're very patient. All those in favour of deferring? That is unanimous. And then we move on to item 10, which is access to information, motion to exclude the press and public. The recommendation that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from items of business, agenda item 11, on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, respectively, Personnel Committee 2025-736 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including your authority holding that information. I'm sure that gets longer every time I say it.
Yes.
I'm proposing that we do exclude public at this stage. Councillor Fernandez has seconded that. All in favour? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. So we will end the live stream.